Hi, welcome to my channel. This video is a Frankenstein of Stormgate information scattered around the internet, and some of my speculation of the game mechanic. Who am I? Well, I'm just an insignificant Terran player who played this game from Broodward all the way to Legacy of the Void, which is 13 years? First of all, this is actually underground cerium mine, and cerium mine is the equivalent of Vespene gases in StarCraft 2. It was revealed in the PR fact sheet that there is an underground variant, and mentioned in the QA questions. It's very interesting where they put it, and I'll be restoring the map later. Many have speculated that this could be a buff. It could be, but I don't think so, because in the theme, the creep is still fighting. There is enough evidence, however, indicating that this is a placeholder for neutral structure. I'll talk more about it. And this could be another placeholder, but would you look at the sign here?
Let's enhance it.
And we got pre-alpha temp hires, temporary hires, recruitable mercenary, which was mentioned in the Q&A. Once they have designed something like that, we just don't know if they're still in the game, so we cannot be sure. Now, is that enough a hook for you, because we got a lot more to talk about in this video. Starting with, for armor and weapon upgrades, we know from the QA Kevin mentioned, although they're still using the old system, there's a reason for them to move away from it. There's two reasons. One is the design philosophy, and the second is the numbers just simply don't match. So their design philosophy on this subject appears to be those upgrades that brings changes to the units more meaningful, more specific, which I agree, because you do want audience who never played the game to be able to understand it. For example, the upgrades that give to Vulcan is very easy to see, quite obvious, and whenever the unit got upgraded, people notice. It will be better if the upgrades will give units new roles. For example, Roaches in StarCraft 2, they are semi-frontline units that tank lots of damage, and after you give them tunneling upgrades, they become this harassment unit. They tunnel underground and hit the workers. And also let me show you the unmatching number. So from Farmman's officials videos, we gather information about the unit health points. Compared to units in StarCraft 2, we got some very beefy units. And then if we look at this scene from the official trailer, we see the scout doggies have around 60 health left. We see 3 exo fired and the scouts almost gone, and the force execute. We knew how much health the scout have, so the exo's damage is around 18. Consider the force shot have lots of overkill. Now those are lower tier units, but we know Vulcans have a lot more HP, so if you look at these scenes where Vulcan take lots of damage, the damage must be like 100 to 120. So now if you give those units the traditional maximum armor upgrade, which is +3 armor, it wouldn't matter. It could be an easy fix by changing the number gaps. Say it goes like 5, 10, 20 armor. But that would just make things more complicated because nobody wants to do math on the spot.
Do math.
The unit will still have armor because questions like these were confirmed. We also know from the fact sheet that overcharge ability for worker protection give them extra armor. The ability was shown here, so we know the unit will still have armor. Okay, let's go back to this purple things. I am speculating it to be a watchtower. Why would I speculate it to be a watchtower instead of a buff? We first hear about creep spawning a structure from Neo's interview with Monk on Back to Warcraft channel, which you should watch the whole thing. I will make the first link in the description. They mention map control in the middle of the map. Kevin says in the interview that creeps will reward you resources, buffs, and most importantly spawn a neutral structure, which could be there for map control. When we look at the map, would you look at this? It's somewhat of an eye, just like what we have for StarCraft 2 Xel'Naga Watchtower. I wonder, but how do I know the location of things? Well, let's recreate this minimap for the trailers. So we have the main base for the red, and this is the outside of the main base. We know this because of the pass and also exposed cerium. Exposed cerium on this map only exists in the main base. Speaking of which, many people said that refinery of the cerium seems unnecessary. I think this is a brilliant design. If there's a bigger map where there's multiple exposed cerium, what you can do is proxy a refinery. And this refinery is double as a passive upgrade buildings. So when your opponent scouting, he or she will be misled to believe that you have an economy build, whereas you're actually doing, you are planning for a timing attack. We have the natural, the underground cerium deposit, outside of the second and third base if you expand horizontally, the fourth or the fifth, and one more Luminite beside it, directly under this purple placeholder with the icon. Here's the ramp leading to those two Luminites on the other side of the map correspondingly, since the map is mirrored. Here's the dog chase themes. We know this because of the shape of the path and also the creep on top. We don't have visual for middle of the map, but we do have a scrapped idea shown to us in the QA. It's kind of like a Baron in League of Legends. It looks like this. Okay, pause. Can we actually have some real monsters, like some kind of old god infested big alien mech or something? I have enough of poultry. I also think the creep with current reward is sort of underwhelming. I'll explain more at the end of the video. And next, trees. We know more about them. So the light forest tree and the big trees have similar attributes. Perhaps both of them can be destroyed. You must have seen that light units can go through the forest, and they achieve this by controlling the spacing between trees. In this themes, it looks like the doggy couldn't go through, and we saw an Atlas tank destroy the big tree. The doggy could just be micro away from the friendly fire. But the size of the wood is significantly different. Would you look at this comparison? And they also mentioned something like backdoor moment related to trees. So, for now, it seems like most trees can be destroyed and it won't grow back, says in the QA, it will be permanent. So let's talk more about endgame units and supplies. Higher tier units will take more supply and early game units will take same amount as if they're in Warcraft or Starcraft. They mentioned maybe there will be a higher tier unit just there to break turtling, but they have their weakness. The supply limit will be 300 for now, and I assume that means there won't be something like Protoss mass carrier move across the map and killing everything, because A, you won't have many of them, and B, there could be a hard counter. Based on what we know from the trailer and the fact sheet, we can estimate a fully saturated 3 base economy with 3 Luminite and 3 Therium mines, maybe cost you 48 workers. Because the Luminite require 12 and the Therium is 4. Well, of course, you can add actual worker on those, but there will be diminishing returns. So if we're looking for efficiency, then we should just default that to 48 worker. The only thing could be inaccurate is the Therium mines, because if you don't mine it, it will grow. So maybe perhaps the number will increase from 4 to 5 and to 6 slowly. That leaves the available supply for armies of 250, and maybe you have 2 for the odds, which is quite a lot. Or there's just a possibility that you don't have enough resources to max out in the early game. I think they also mentioned something like replacing F2 with auto control group and new UIs. So Kevin says the auto control group will be automatically added newly produced unit into the control group of your choice, which has some sort of presetting you can do. You can decide which unit go to which control group. You also no longer have to put buildings into your control group for production because now they have a separate keys. But I assume they will still let you do it because, we need some time to get used to it. So you can preset it to collect every single battle unit into the one control group, which will be your F2. And also I think casting spell will be easier because you just have to select everything and use corresponding hotkey to use all of their ability instead of using tab to going through every single unit and then cast separately or use different control group. And we know the community reacted with mixed feeling, and here I'm gonna show you some of the Chinese and Korean reaction to the trailer. Seems like everyone have similar reactions saying that it's too cartoony, lack of details, which I agree. But then people start to compare it to a StarCraft 2 trailer, which I don't think is a good comparison. It couldn't be a fair comparison because how much money StarCraft 2 cost. But Frost Giant as a company only got 1/3 of that resources up to 2021. Besides, the art of StarCraft 2 has a very strong foundation. They have a concept art from StarCraft 1. Conceptually, if we look at StarCraft 1 pre-alphas, well, let's just say everyone have their first time. From what I gathered, funny enough, the community had the same lukewarm reaction back then. They are repeating history here, which could be a good thing consider how successful Brood War is. We can see improvement already, and if you compare this to footage here, it is mentioned also in the fact sheet that resources texture are temporary. So most likely what we're seeing is a mid to low graphics that's unfinished. In fact, if we look at the early stage of Overwatch,
so this was, I think, literally the
they
first
start with
season
minimal
that
art.
you're ever
Come
gonna
on,
see.
those are just
Literally
Minecraft
Minecraft
block.
is
And they're working on controls. That's how we got those smooth controls from Blizzard titles. So let's just give them more time and see what happened. Of course, there's a lot more information out there, but somebody else already made that into the video, or it's quite obvious in the trailer, so I don't have to talk about them. So what are my thoughts after knowing all of those? In this video of Back to Warcraft, Neil's talking about the pros and cons that he feels like whatever information was presented. And one of his down point is that the reward is not random, which I agree. So the creeps reward are predetermined. However, I don't think the random drop of gears is suited for Stormgate, because the gear system in Warcraft is sort of part of the hero system, and you're not having that type of hero system in Stormgate. And the buff system, I guess they take inspiration from MOBA like League of Legends. And so happen I play League since Season 2. Not very good at it though, don't ask. Those are the time where I still have like 1% crit ruins. The blue and red buff. So once you kill these two monsters, they give you gold, EXP, and a buff. However, this is strictly tied to the goal of pushing down enemy tower. A jungler with red buff should be able to bring more pressure to enemy laner. When the jungler with red buff successfully gank enemy laner, it creates a window, which your team can use to push down enemy towers. And for the blue buff, it's for resilient, and that is why in some cases it will give blue to the main laner mage, for them to have a stronger wave control or pressure, because now they have basically endless mana. And I just don't understand the position of such a system in RTS. But I also have a proposal. Take inspiration from League of Legends and Legacy of the Void mission. Instead of the blue and red buff, we're talking about the Drake. So the Drakes in League of Legends have their impacts on the map. They change geographics based on their element, and so does the environmental stabilizer from the campaign of Legacy of the Void. The mission is called Sky Shield. The simplified version of the mission is that you have one side try to protect the objective and another side try to destroy it. And as you protect or destroy it, it changes the environment. Put that into the Stormgate, for example, where you can have some objective on the middle of the map. Players can choose to maintain it or dismantle it. Of course, it's temporary and it gives you an effect during that period where it covers part of the map. Say for example, it causes a sandstorm whenever you dismantle it, and the effect will be reduced vision and weapon range. And if you choose to maintain it, it costs you some resources, and then it gives you a better geo for defense. Say for example, a lush forest, where trees and bushes grow slowly to cover part of the map to create a line of sight. Wouldn't it make it a engaging and lore-fitting objective in the game? As for the tempo of the game, I feel like there will be a lot going on whenever you're actually playing the game. You have to macro your army, you have to build an economy, map control, creep hacking, harass your opponents with multi-fronted attack. Quite a lot of action actually. Less lethality? Yes. Slower gameplay? I don't know. Maybe we'll have less tension for the early game. More thinking and strategic play. But I don't feel like the late game will be particularly slow, especially at pro player level. Imagine Liquid Climb, Evax drop Atlas on 4 fronts at the same time. All of your houses are on fire, while he's also creep hacking you, and you just couldn't keep up with him. I think things like that could happen. Well, that's all I have for today. This video is supposed to be longer, but I cut it down. There are lots of technical details on the Reddit for map makings, about the engine in fact. But that's not my specialization, so you will have to figure out yourself or somebody else have to do it. Anyway, thanks for watching.